Good evening, beautiful ladies. I welcome all of you, and I'm sure some of the ladies will actually find us on the way. I'm so excited. I actually don't know where to start. As as all of you are entering, I keep getting more excited. Because the more of us, the more fun it will be. Um, Nompilo Gumede, they call me the powerhouse. I'm the host of this conference, and this conference is organized by Tsava Africa. And some of you are asking themselves, who is Tsava Africa? Tsava Africa is a company. Mute someone. Tsava Africa is a company that is run by myself, Nompilo Gumede, and my sister, Ayanda Shobete. So we registered this company in 2019, and then in 2019 we started having these conferences. We started with just 20 ladies, and it was so much fun. We had a speaker, and it was exciting. We're talking about excellence. So last year in 2020, when we saw that what is going to happen to us, because we still need empowerment even if there's COVID, then we started a WhatsApp thing and a WhatsApp conference, and it was just so successful. So we thought this year, let's just do the Zoom thing, because we do not want to expose you ladies to COVID, as we know the situation right now in our country. So Other Africa is fashion. We do hoodies, t-shirts, and sweaters. And my sister actually branches out as well to do baking, but she's got another company for that, Fairytale Avenue. Fairytale Avenue. And then we have business solutions, which is really happening at the moment. You can just refer your friends if you need your help with your books, with your bookkeeping, with your tax, with everything business. We just bring you the solutions. And then it's events, and that's what we're doing now, because we're passionate about people, we love people, and we want people to be empowered. So yeah, that's what Taba Africa is about. So I hope you all enjoyed your gift from Ngaba Publishers. My husband is an author, so for this conference, he said he wants to sponsor the event and just give the ladies the book. And
For me to do this.
so I hope all of you ladies have received your gift. If your gift has arrived, just let me know.
I'm done.
So today, before I introduce, I'd like to thank the people that helped me with getting the speaker. His name is Dr. Ngazi Mkwanazi. I actually was listening to his podcast, which is called The Blended Science. And I heard the speaker, and she spoke something so profound to me. So I thought, let me invite this lady to come and speak to us as the ladies. So, to those who have just joined us, you're welcome to just write on the chat who you are and where you're from. And we are just so happy that you're here. So, ladies, feel free. Today, we're talking about mental health, which we all need that. As ladies, we go through so much. So, I just believe that this talk is very important to us. As much as we want to be successful, we also need to be realistic in terms of things that really affect us as ladies. So can we just have some virtual noise for our speaker, Asiphe Mashishini, who is so passionate about kids, who is so passionate about families, yes, who's passionate, who's just on her journey of being this powerhouse that she is. And I'm so thankful that she said yes to my invite today. So I'm so excited that you're here today and you're going to speak to us. So remember to write your questions on the chat, and then we can do the Q&A afterwards, because this is all about equipping us and empowering us so that we can be better individuals, we can be better women in this community. So welcome, and feel free, feel at home, because wow, it's going down. This is our month. Happy Women's Month. So Asiphe, over to you.
Oh, wow, already. Yo, it's the 7th of August, 7 p.m. already. Hello, ladies. Thank you so much, Nombilo and Dava Africa, for this opportunity. It's such a privilege to be invited to any platform, for that matter. I am so excited to speak to women. I've never actually done this on what do I want to call this, on an official role, but obviously by women always find spaces to talk about things in their hearts, and I'm so glad that we are starting to be deliberate as a group, to create such platforms, and not just only around Women's Month, but just I've been seeing quite a lot of women just being deliberate about stepping out and creating spaces where they speak about things that are close to their hearts. So it's such an opportunity, it's such a privilege for me to be invited here to speak about what is close to my heart. So just briefly, maybe to introduce myself, Kamalam Dung Asiphe Mashishini. I am from the Eastern Cape. I came to KZN at the age of 9 years. I was actually in Maritzburg, so I'm excited to see so many people from Maritzburg. I was in Maritzburg for a very long time. Yes, from the age of 9, in Funde Northdale, and then I matriculated from Silver Heights, actually, in Pietermaritzburg, and then I moved to Durban. So what am I doing? Who am I? And just to contextualize, topic namhlanje, I feel like I need to explain myself, because the topic that I have chosen to speak about today might at first glance not look like something that is very relevant to everyone, but I believe that it is. So professionally right now, I think I am actually working towards my profession. I am a student. I am a master's student. I'm finishing off my master's in educational psychology, and I'm studying for my board exams. So I have practiced as a student psychologist and as an intern psychologist. And I've had experience with working specifically with kids because of the educational psychology, the speciality that I've chosen. So my interest is in children. I love children. I love people, but especially children. But I think in loving children, I'm able to see the child in every single person I meet, because we were all once children. And today, I felt like I needed to speak about what I'm speaking about, because I'm speaking to women. And by virtue of who we are as women, I think the mandate and the call on our lives is to be nurturers, is to be life givers, is to be primary caregivers in our society, because of the way God created us, and for the actual practicality, because we actually carry and we bring life into earth. And if we have to change a nation, I believe that we are sitting Betuna that God has given alongside men, obviously. But today, I think I'm speaking to the nurturers, the molders of societies. And when we speak about mental health, it's so easy to want to talk about, when we speak to adults, it's so easy for us as maybe mental health practitioners to want to talk about the various mental health disorders. And I believe those mental health disorders are just merely the fruit that we see, but there definitely is a root of those mental illnesses and social issues that we see in our society. So my interests are children, yes, but people, establishing the kingdom of God through my profession, and social psychology, early childhood development, quite a lot of things, learning, education, but more than anything, I think that what covers it is that I'm really passionate about establishing the kingdom of God in people's lives through my profession. And whatever the kingdom of God looks like in the space that I'm in is really, when we pray, we say, let your kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. And so for me, particularly because of my interest, what does a healthy family look like? What does umntu who has their mental capacity thriving look like in heaven as it is on earth? In earth as it is in heaven. So that's my worldview. My worldview is very biblical as I approach my studies in psychology. So my presentation is very academic. but I'm going to try to break it down because psychology is can be full of a lot of jargon. But namhlanje bethuna, I'm going to talk about something very close to my heart, and I'm going to talk about children, and I'm going to talk about adverse childhood experiences. So I'm going to share my screen. Please just give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen. So just give me a thumbs up when you can see my screen. And then I'll start sharing from the beginning. I'm gonna try to go really quickly because of time. So I'm guessing you ladies can see my screen. Yebo, Ms. Koleka, thank you for affirming that you can see my screen. All right, so I'm talking about adverse childhood experiences, and I've titled this Understanding the Link Between Adverse Childhood Experiences and Mental Health. And so I've quickly just outlined the role that I think women have in creating societies with better mental health outcomes. And I think as I go, I think I'll just be repeating myself because I feel like we play such a pivotal role and such an important role in shaping the minds of abantwana because of who we are. If we look at society, the first person that the child interacts with is the mother. And then chances are the domestic, the help in the home is going to be a female. The preschool teacher is a female. Most of the primary school teachers are mostly female. So by the time, for most of the child's life, for most of the child's early life, he or she is surrounded by females. And if females can understand, and women can understand, and mothers and caregivers and whoever we are, and aunts and aunts and sisters can understand how we can shape this child's life so that this person can be a productive adult in the world, then I think our fight against mental health disorders and issues is won by almost 80%. So anyway, so I'm going to describe what adverse childhood experiences are. I'm going to talk about how they influence our mental health, our physical health, and how they deprive individuals of opportunities. Then I'm going to talk about I'm going to go a little bit into the biology of how adversity, adverse experiences and adversity just generally affect our brains as human beings. And then lastly, after I've drawn a somewhat grim picture, I'm going to talk about what we can do, singenza ndoni, as people, and what we could do, right? Because I think sometimes as a profession in psychology, we describe quite a bit because we deal with pathology. We speak about illnesses. Oh, you're going to look like this and like that. And very little do we speak about what can a person do to prevent what we've just described. So I'm going to try to do that, but I'm going to do it right at the end. So please bear with me. All right, let me get into it. So this is the picture that is painted here about mental health disorders and the state of mental health just in South Africa. 1 in 3 South Africans will or do have mental health issues at some point or in their lifetime. Then there's a stat about only 1 in 10 South Africans actually have access to mental health treatments or care. Depression is the leading cause of disability, in inverted commas, I think, in worldwide, how it really just disabled people emotionally and otherwise. And then there's a stat here about 30.6% of students have had thoughts of suicide in the last 12 months. And so on and so forth. And then there's some grim pictures about how much our government actually spends on mental health, but that's a discussion of between health work practitioners that we need to look into. And then 70%, the 70% of South Africans who have attempted suicide have had a mental disorder. And then the stats that maybe what will probably hit home for most of us is that women are 2 times likely to suffer from depression than men. And I've seen this as I study and we look at the prevalence and of occurrence of different mental health disorders. And I find that it's more prevalent in women. It's more prevalent in women. It's more prevalent in women. And my heart just breaks because, like I said, if we look at the fact that we are we are the nurturers and givers. If we are unwell, then how are we molding and shaping the children in our societies if most of the women in our population are more likely to be depressed? Do you know what I mean? So I'm struggling a bit because I'm seeing my screen, but I'm not seeing whether you guys can follow. So please just give me another thumbs up if you can still hear me, or just no, look, maybe you can just tell me if you guys can still hear me,
Yes, we can hear
because
you.
I'm not seeing. Okay, lovely. Okay, cool. Yeah, so anyway, I'm not gonna go on too deep with the stats, but basically we have a mental health crisis globally, and now with COVID and restrictions and unemployment, things have really been grim. But God is good. He is great, and akubanga, and there's grace. So these are just stats about young children. I think particularly the stats that I want to focus on is the fact that mental illnesses, plus minus 50% of mental illnesses begin by the age of 14, 75% in the mid-20s. And I think a lot of us can attest to this, but I've seen kids younger who have had mental health issues that have persisted into adulthood. So what is the problem? Why is the world in a mental health crisis? So that's always been my question. I by the time I got to honors, I was so tired of hearing what is wrong with the world, and I wanted to find out, Bao Kandi, what are we doing wrong? What is it exactly that we are doing as a society that is making us sick? And God is like, it's sin. Yes, I know that, Lord, and this is how we address it. But particularly for me, how do I address it? And God was like, we start in our families. And I think all of us know that. And for those who have gone to psychologists, to their annoyance, you go to a psychologist because you are experiencing something in your 30s, and your psychologist sometimes, almost all the time, will ask you about your childhood. And a lot of people will get really annoyed and be like, with my problem right now with my boss who is not listening to me, who's frustrating me. But I think we want to go back to the childhood because we want to go back to the foundation. So Dr. Robert Block, a former president of the Academy of Pediatrics in the US, said, adverse childhood experiences are the single greatest unaddressed public health threat facing our nation today. And I'd like to say that it's facing our entire world today. If we don't address adverse childhood experiences and the impact that it has on public health and mental health, we are overlooking a lot of things. We are just merely treating the fruit. So when I speak about mental health, I don't want to speak about disorders. I want to speak about what can we do proactively so that the next generation doesn't have the same stats that I just recounted for us. So what are adverse childhood experiences? The word adverse could be substituted with the word negative. So these are potentially traumatic events that have occurred in our childhood. So when I speak about childhood, I speak from 0 to 17 years. These adverse childhood experiences can also be maybe commonly called childhood trauma, but I don't like using that term because sometimes when we think about trauma, we think about big things that have happened to people. Oh, she got raped, or we think huge. Those are big things, and we think abuse, but sometimes we neglect to think about the small things that can actually overwhelm a child. So when we speak about trauma, a psychological definition that's probably very helpful is maybe understanding trauma as an emotionally painful, as any event, anything that can cause emotionally painful and distressing feelings that overwhelm a person's capacity to cope and to leave him or her with feelings of helplessness and hopelessness. So if we look at the key words there, it's anything that can cause emotional pain, distress, and that distress needs to overwhelm your capacity to cope and might leave you feeling hopeless and helpless. So now if you think in terms of, if you use that definition and you think about a child, how many things are overwhelming and that overwhelm a child's capacity to cope. How many things are emotionally painful for umdan? I don't particularly have kids of my own, but I believe I have quite a few kids. And I love observing them. If I'm in a room, I mostly gravitate towards children, and the tiniest things are frustrating and emotionally painful, and toddlers can throw themselves on the floor in 2 minutes if you don't want to give them water. Oh, I'm so helpless and I'm so hopeless. Is that trauma? Well, I think it is. In that 2 minutes, it is very traumatic that you don't want to give your 2-year-old water. And if you persist, they might even say this is an adverse childhood experience. But anyway, that is just some light humor. But I want us to understand that to renew our mind when we think about things that affect children, painful things that affect children that we might overlook as adults. Okay, so with that understanding, what's going on here? Okay, so something violence or witnessing violence, okay, experiencing violence, abuse, or neglect. And even those terms need to be broken down, because people can think that, oh no, it's okay, certain things are okay. Neglect and abuse and violence are very common in South Africa. Witnessing violence in the home, whether it be domestic violence or whether it be really hectic corporal punishment, or just the way we discipline children in a way that could hurt them, that is violent. Having a family member attempt or die by suicide is also an adverse childhood experience. Growing up in an environment that can undermine your sense of safety, of stability and bonding. So this is so important when we think about painful experiences. The moment a child feels unsafe, not necessarily from physical threats, but just emotional safety of the child. If that is undermined, if the child feels mom is hot, sometimes she's cold, sometimes dad is here, sometimes he's not, that type of instability really puts a child in a space of feeling unsafe. And for socialization, we are social beings, and we make meaning from our social experiences. So if that ability to bond with the adults in the house is undermined, that could be an emotionally painful experience. I want to just pause here and acknowledge how difficult it is to address an audience that you don't see. I'm finding it so difficult because I'm a social being. I like seeing people's facial expressions when I'm talking. So I'm praying and hoping that you guys can see me and you are nodding and understanding. Growing up in a household with substance misuse, mental health problems, where the parent maybe is misusing drugs and the parent has mental health issues, the home is just unstable because there's a parental separation, or the parent was arrested, or a sibling, or any other member of the household who's probably misusing or who has mental health disorders. So you can see it's quite a range of things that could actually undermine the child's safety and stability, and can be classified as an adverse experience. Living in an under-resourced or racially segregated neighborhood, some things that are out of our control. Where you are born, you don't choose to be born in a place that's under-resourced, where you don't get water, you don't get certain services, especially in a country like South Africa. Then there's other things like racial issues and systemic issues and poverty that could affect the quality of your life, eventually prolonged, that could be identified and seen as an adversity. So those are some of the things that can actually predispose and put the child at risk, depending on how long and what the buffers are. There's a lot of factors, but I'm just highlighting some of the things that were outlined in a study about what adults were interviewed, and they were asked about things that they experienced. These are adults who had mental health issues and heart disease, cancer. And when they were tracing back, they realized that there were a lot of these adverse experiences, and they made a correlation in that the more adverse experiences you have, the higher risks are for developing mental health disorders and other physical health disorders. And that's just what I'm trying to portray here, and why it's important to start at the root of how we raise children, where we raise children, in order to fight the bigger fight of mental health. Okay, so how do ACEs influence physical and mental health and opportunities? I'm going to fly through this because I think I've already repeated myself. And a lot of this came from my discussion with Dr. Mkwanazi. He's a physiologist, and he really explained the science very well for me. It really opened up my eyes, and it reminded me of some of the stuff that I did in my neuropsych class. But bottom line is that when we experience prolonged stress, right? When you are living in a home where you are constantly feeling like you are not safe as a child, or as an adult for that matter, but it's especially important when you're a child, because your brain is still growing. You are born into the world and you are trying to make sense of the world. So your experiences inform what connections the brain will form. So what happens is children are born into the world, and the mother and the immediate environment provide stimulation that causes the connections of the brain to form and structure in a certain way depending on what you give it. So the experiences that the child has determine how their brain grows. So the childhood years then form a building block. So the period between when the child is in the mother's womb to the time the child is 17, 18, even 21, I think, are building blocks that help set the stage for adult relationships, behaviors, physical and mental health, and the social outcomes that the child will walk into. So now if we expose children to trauma and hardships at a very young age when their brains are still sensitive, we can impact their brain development. The structure of the brain can actually change. Important parts that are important for learning and development, and what the child enjoys in terms of pleasure, what the child is scared of, what the child is not scared of, they can really be affected by the toxic stress that is activated when these children are exposed to danger. I'm not going to get into the science of the cortisols and the whatnots that Dr. Mkwanazi explained so eloquently. If you want to understand that, please go over and watch and listen to his podcast. He put it up so well. But basically, bottom line, finally, is that when you stress someone, even as an adult, when you stress a young brain, while the child is still developing and forming their brains, when the child is constantly feeling shaken or feeling emotional pain consistently, the structure of their brain is compromised, and it is changed, and it is shaped by the experiences you give them. So there's some interesting things to know here, that from birth to the age of 3, we see the fastest rate of brain development in the entire human lifespan. Can you understand what that means? What are the implications of those things? Ingqondo yomntu is growing the fastest from the ages of 0 to 3. So if you want to plant any seeds, if you want to shape your child into anything, into a person, into anything that you want to shape them in, the best is to do it from 0 to 3. And most of the time we get it wrong. We think we start shaping children's brains at 6. And by that time, it's late. It's still okay, but it's quite late. The fastest growing connections are being made when the child is young. And so often we neglect children at that age because if I'm not there. Your face, your smile, your experiences, your presence shape your child's life. So from birth to age 3 is a rapid holistic development. So cognitively, the part of the brain that is in charge of us thinking, language, social, emotional, creativity, and physical development. I think we get the physical development one right because we have to go to the nurses and they tell us, oh, this child can sit, this child can run, and those are the milestones. This is Nagayo, but we don't look at the development that is holistically. Is this child kind? Can they share? So those are just as important, because when we look at an adult now who doesn't have these things, we say things like, but if we miss raising and discipling the children while their brains are still malleable, we miss such a key time of shaping these children's brains. I was reminded of a saying that we have in our African languages, ithini isihlahla sigotsha samanzi, and this is literally what it is. Experiences in the first 3 years shape the way the child thinks, feels, behaves, and learns now and in the future. So you are, as a mother, as an aunt, as a sister, have a very critical role of shaping the world that you want to see tomorrow by shaping the mind of that 2-year-old, 1-year-old, 6-month-old baby. 6 months old baby into the person that you want to see in the world. Mother Teresa said it so beautifully. If you want to change the world, love your family. Go home and love your family. So I'm just gonna bring your attention to this picture, and just to maybe show you, this is typically how the brain is meant to develop, right? So at the bottom there, the biggest part is supposed to be our cognition, our ability to think. This is how we think, sense math, science, we can reason and all of that. Then social emotional, how do you process emotions? You are a well-adjusted adult, your emotional maturity, you are able to regulate yourself, you get angry, but you're able to calm down, you are hungry, you are thirsty, that part of the brain is supposed to be that big. And then the least of your worries should be survival, right? So that's the ratio of the brain. That upside down triangle is the correct way in terms of the size of the brain, right? The brain develops from the top, from the bottom up. This is how the brain is supposed to develop. The biggest part of our brains is supposed to be this part where we think and apply and. But with children that experience trauma, we find that they have a bottom heavy brain. Their brains are bigger in the parts where they're thinking about, the connections have been made faster because of the overactive amygdala trying to regulate the emotions. So imagine a child who lives in a home where mom and dad are constantly fighting, there is no food, the community is impoverished, and sometimes there's no money to go to school, or whatever reasons, just survival issues, right? So if this child is constantly worried about survival, connections are being made regarding that survival. I'm always afraid to be, chased by the criminals on the road, just survival things. This child is on survival mode. Survival mode is either we fighting, we flighting, you flight, or you freeze. And so often the children that I see that get referred, that I used to see, are children that will be sent out of class or sent to the psychologist because this one is fighting, this one is always angry, or the child is not paying attention. They daydreaming in class. They just look blank. So those are the children who just freeze, or maybe they escape in their brains. So children who have issues with regulation, or they're spending some of their time trying to calm themselves down. There's no time to be listening to the teacher doing maths, because look at their thinking ability, cognition, difficulty following instructions, and their socio-emotional is imbalanced as well. So this is how the brain is affected by stress, by trauma, by instability. And if we take a look at this can go into childhood. Okay, I'm gonna rush really quickly. How am I doing on time? Do I have a timekeeper? Nabila, do I have a timekeeper?
I am keeping the time.
Yes.
Okay, because I can talk quite a bit, hey guys. So please stop me. I think I've already covered this, but I just want to speak on this last point, that a brain that has constantly been exposed to stress has very detrimental effects on the body itself. Now this is now affecting the physical health of the children, the immunity of the child. So this toxic stress not only affects the brain that I'm concerned about, but also the whole system of the child. And so this child is sickly, this child, it doesn't happen all to one child. You see different effects here and there. And I think it's also important to bear in mind that children don't only experience negative experiences, so sometimes it kind of balances out. But the children that I see, are the children that I'm talking about. I'm talking about worst case scenarios. Changes to the brain from toxic stress can affect things such as attention, impulsive behavior, decision making, learning, emotional, and response to stress. So increasing the risk for development of, so all of this increases the development of ADHD. I don't know how many children I've seen who are said to have ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, hyperactive disorder, and impulsive disorder. And when you talk to these children, you realize these children are traumatized, they are depressed, they have post-traumatic stress disorders, and it's so much. And once you address some of those things, you see some of those ADHD symptoms decrease, but some of them are prolonged and they can persist into adulthood. Learning disabilities, anxieties, depressions, which unfortunately will persist into adulthood, which impacts your mental health, your quality of life. Because if you have a learning disability, I mean, that already cuts your chances of doing a lot of academically based subjects and professions and so on and so forth. I think I have already mentioned some of this. I think what is important to stress here is that what we see now as teenagers and adults, you start seeing children getting into early initiation of sexual activity, unprotected sex, and unfortunately suicide attempts because of unaddressed issues, right? And unsafe homes and so on and so forth. And I think when we see this, some of us are already thinking about some kids that we know, or even maybe ourselves, and the traps that we've fallen into and some of the difficulties we've had. But also they may also have unstable work histories as adults. Now, a lot of adults that we see walking around.
But anyway, let's go on.
Can we pause that?
I think there was a point of which driver in happening the last three.
Are we able to pause that?
Besikhuluma about trauma.
Who is that? Can we pause that, please? Oh, thank you so much. Okay. So I was just saying, as adults, we this can be seen as people having very unstable work histories. A lot of psychologists get people coming in having issues at work, anger outbursts with their bosses, being late. Those are all unaddressed mental health issues that could be as a result of unresolved childhood trauma. Struggling with finances, no one has ever taught you how to consistently save, manage your finances. Family, jobs, depression throughout your life, the effects which can be passed on to your children. This is so unfortunate, because what happens is not only does toxic stress change your brain development, but it also changes your DNA. And studies in just epigenetics look at how your body, your DNA can physically change because of the experiences that you go through, and then you end up passing on that DNA to your children. So we find that in the family, there's a trail of depression. There's a generational thing, and to a point where we now say it looks like depression has biological effects, has biological predispositions, and unfortunately, that becomes a thing that we pass on generationally to our kids. So that is the lasting effects of that. Okay, now for some good news. What do we do, Asiphe? You've told us this horror story. What is the alternative? Because some of these things that you mentioned are beyond our ability to. I mean, I can't change the fact that I live in this community and all the social ills that you've counted exist. But I'd like to put it to you, Bana. The home is the most influential space that you can in your child's life. You can grow up in the roughest neighborhood, but if you set a precedent in your home of where the child feels safe and seen, you buffer so much of the effects that could possibly affect your child's mental development and just your child's mental health. We know this, we've seen this. People will be like, no, I grew up there, but I'm different. And when you look at someone's life, somewhere, somehow, there was a person who buffered and changed their lives and did some of these things that I'm going to speak about. The opposite of adverse childhood experiences are positive childhood experiences. I mean, the opposite of adverse childhood experiences are creating positive childhood experiences, experiences that will change the course of the child's life, experiences that will foster resilience in a child, that even though my background is like this, I can't change my mom who's an alcoholic, but I have a mother figure in my teacher. I have a mother figure in my neighbor, and so on and so forth. Yes, the person can never be your mother, but they can change your perspective and your life. And depending on when you meet them in your journey, it can really be life-saving for a lot of people. I mean, I think about my life and how many people came into my life at the right time, at the different times, that have made me the person that I am today. So the ability to talk about with family about feelings, this is a big one I found. So I deal with teenagers, and I'm sitting with a teenager, and and they tell me big things that concern me. And the first thing I ask, have you been able to talk to anyone in your family about this? And the answer is almost always no. I talk to a 10-year-old, an 8-year-old. Have you told your mommy this? Have you told your daddy this? And the answer is no. When we don't create safe spaces, I mean, I think now, let me change my language. What we can do for our families is create safe spaces where children can share their thoughts, their feelings, their experiences in an open and honest way. And dialogue is around such things is welcome. You're not just tolerating it while you're working and cooking because this child is telling you, hey, avethando kuluma. You are actually listening to your child and creating a space where your child's opinions and life and, oh, no, she sticks sweet. Those things are important. They're telling you about their day, because there comes a time when they're teenagers where they don't want to tell you about their day. But if you start them young and you create dialogues about feelings and experiences, you become a sounding board and a voice in your child's life. So this could be through a parent checking in every now and again, or even sharing your own feelings in an appropriate way, not in a way that makes you your child's friend, because then that's also just very weird, where now your child is your confidant, your child is not your friend. That can also just be very stressful, where I've seen roles shifting now, teenagers coming in and their parents are burdening them with their own problems. So you don't want that. You want to facilitate a space where you are able to hold a dialogue with your child in a curious way that invites them to open up about their inner world. Sharing emotions promotes emotional intelligence in the growing minds of a child. So remember, you are socializing this child into the adults that you want them to be. The second thing we can do is to create a space where children feel and experience that I have support in this family when I'm going through a difficult time. When a difficult experience occurs in a child's life, a parent offers support through their presence and or expresses through words. Your child comes to you and they tell you they lost their favorite pen. It's not the end of the world. You know this. There's 10 other pens that you can buy, but that was painful. Speak to your child, engage them. Oh, I'm so sorry. Reframe that for them. Or maybe someone stole their lunch, or maybe they got hurt because they weren't chosen. They were chosen last to play a game of ushumpu. I don't know if children actually still play shumpu. We used to play shumpu, and then people wouldn't choose you and it was awkward, but just listening to your child and supporting them, the little things that they come and bring to you while they're still young, creates their spaces and opportunities for them to bring the big things when they are teenagers, because there are very big things in this world that Usatane brings into children's lives, and you want them to discuss them with you. So taking the time to notice and be with your child through this helps them to feel as though their parent is on their side, and they is by their side and on their side. So it doesn't have to be too much. Maybe just creating 5 minutes before Hambiolala, you have prayed as a family, you've watched 2 generations or whatever, 5 minutes to say, hey, how was your day? Just where they know there's a time, a FaceTime between mom and I, where I can offload or I can just share my thoughts and receive support from a parent or an aunt. I keep saying mom, but I know I'm speaking to aunts and cousins and teachers and a whole lot of other people here. Enjoyment, creating situations where children can enjoy participating in community traditions. These don't have to be big opulent things, but communities can be your extended family. Which, okay, njalo, when schools close, we go to granny's house. That can be a norm, a regular thing that they do that makes them feel connected to a greater sense of community. I can't tell you how much of an escape it is for some children whose home situations, maybe parents are going through a divorce or it's a hard time in the home. Just going and knowing that, okay, at least maybe mamncane has a stable marriage, maybe mamncane has there's food. So those little things, traditions to connect your child to a greater community. We go to church every Sunday. And at the church, I see other children. They see a world that is different from theirs, but also those traditions begin to shape the child's consistency, and they start to make meaning of the world, not just from the context of their homes and little families. So this can help the child feel connected and garner a sense of community where they meet a Sunday school teacher, a coach, and so on and so forth. So I think this is the fourth one. I have 7 of these and I'm done. And then making sure that your child, if you have a teenager, do they feel like they belong in high school? Because sometimes we think that as soon as kids are like 14, 15, because they're always on their phone. That is such a critical stage, again, from 14 to 17, because now, even if you can do a great job as a mom, as a sister, raise your 13-year-old, to say, right, the minute they go to high school, sometimes there's a big shift in their personality, because now, all of a sudden, they value the opinions of their peers. But that's also very important for them. They need to go through that phase. But if you've established a firm foundation of relationship and safe spaces at home, that change can be very easy to navigate. But you want to check that, does your teenager feel like they have a sense of belonging? Encourage them to take part in sports, encourage them to take part in things that are going to make them feel like they have friends, they have peers. I think for a lot of us, we don't think we should be helping our children make friends, but making friends is such an important aspect of being a human being. I'm 29 years old and I've had to relook at the definition of friends. What is a friend? And I've made some very not so great choices in friendship and, assumed. But if you guide your child in how to create positive relationships through interacting with like-minded people, by the time your child is 21, they already know how to build relationally and create spaces like this and have a sense of belonging. They know that, no, Mina, I just because I'm a boy doesn't mean I have to play soccer. Mom said these are my strengths because God, these are the gifts and passions and talents that God has given me. And you direct your child when they're looking for a sense of belonging in high school. I hope I'm making sense. Number 5, being supported, feeling supported by their friends is also important. Know your child's friends. Are they speaking life into your child? Are they not bullying your child? Are they not, not in an overbearing mother hen or father hen, auntie hen type of way, but in just what I was talking about, in guiding your child in making friends. But it's so important for children to feel supported by their friends. You can affirm your child so many times, but are you right? As soon as a friend comes in and says, "Yo, what are you wearing?" Because at some point, the family and the mother's opinion and the father's opinion doesn't matter. There's a stage where, that's normal, because when you grow and you're a teenager, you measure yourself against your peers. But when you really about who you are as a person, you can be safe to know that your child has the ability to make and choose healthy friends. This is where most of us come in, being non-parent adults who genuinely care for children who come from very broken homes. While it is important for children to feel supported by their family, it is also important that they have at least 2 supportive adults outside of home. These adults could be teachers, they could be counselors, coaches, mentors, friends, parents, etc. This is so important. Some people don't like it when their child is closer to another adult who's not a parent, but that can be such a blessing, as long as obviously the person that they're close with is speaking the same language that you're speaking in terms of ideals and values. But it can influence your child in a very the person needs to influence the child in a very healthy way, so that sometimes where they don't see eye to eye, and I go speak to my aunt gives me a perspective about my mom that I didn't know, and it can nurture our relationship. But it's important for your child to have a mentor, and so on and so forth. I think this is where also psychologists come in as well. And not to send your children to psychologists only when there's a problem, just for general development and conversation, at a very expensive price, for us to listen to your children for. And then lastly, creating and making sure that children feel safe and protected by an adult at home. This is not always possible, but children who feel safe and protected can grow into very secure, emotionally secure adults. It can look like being physically cared for. Your needs are met, you are protected from physical danger. It can also look like being safe from overwhelming experiences. Whatever it may be, it is crucial that a child feels safe, as though the parents in their life are available and doing what they can to keep a child safe and healthy. This allows the child to focus on things beyond their basic needs being met. So this allows the child to stop focusing on surviving, but other parts of the brain to grow, so that they can be productive adults in society. So that is my conversation starter, and I really hope it was quite a bit to try to condense, but I hope it's made some thoughts come into your mind and things that we can discuss, and I really hope it was relevant. So yeah, all right. Thank you. I think I'll stop there. In fact, that's the end of my presentation. Nompilo, over to you.
I cannot unmute myself now. Okay. Thank you so much, Asiphe. That was so lovely. I feel like I've just attended such a powerful lecture. And right now, I'll just like to thank the CEO of Women in Business, Alison. She's here with us, and she actually has helped us with the platform that we're using. So we're using the Women in Business platform. So Ali, thank you so much for being here and for letting us shine. Asiphe, I want to introduce people that are going to help you with your Q&A. Thank you. I see there's people are clapping hands in the chat. I'm very excited. And that was really an awesome presentation. So I'd like to just introduce Nandisa, who is a psychologist in practice, who will help us with the Q&A. There's also Miss G, who was our guest speaker last year with Star. So I see that Tanya has already raised her hand. I'm sure she's got a question. Tanya, you can shoot. I've noted other questions. I'll just call the people's names and then we can just get going. So those three people will help us. And I saw one of the ladies, Thingy, already asked for Asiphe's number. So I don't know if Asiphe will actually, yeah, even Matsidiso was asking for Asiphe's details right now. Asiphe, that was just so awesome. You can continue reading the chats. But let me start with Tanya. Tanya, can you just unmute your mic and then ask the question?
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, Tanya, we can hear you.
Yes, Tanya, I can hear you.
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much. That was really a good presentation. So much to learn and so much to take in. Yeah, it's not really a question, but it's just something that was bothering me, because I remember also just an experience that I had with my daughter when she started school. She was experiencing that kind of she was a little bit not happy, or let me not say not secure, when they started school because she couldn't make friends. So it was really a difficult experience for her. And I found it was really hard for me how to advise her and what to do. But what I just told her, it was that give yourself time, because since it is a new grade and you are still learning to know who is who, you will make friend, and then some other children, they will just like to come and make friends, like to know you, and then and from there you will pick, you will know who you will love to make friend with. So those are the advice I was giving her. But listening to you today is really I've add a lot of value, and also it make me realize that there's so much more that we need to do with our children, especially having more conversation with them, talking to them, trying to listen to them, especially whenever they come back from schools, or even when they just want to share things with you, just give them that ear to listen to them. And those are the things I really picked up from your advice today. And I'm really want to say thank you so much for that. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Tanya. Thank you for that. I think you're touching on something that's very important, that I forgot to speak to. When do you step in, and how do you step in? I think what you did to guide your child and encourage them is the first step that we usually try as parents. But I also want to bring it to our attention that sometimes, even after you've encouraged your child and they go, children can be very mean and very shame. We are really indeed born into sin. We never really know who teaches them how to be mean and sidelined. So in cases where children are really alone and they don't have friends, and it persists past the first day of adjustment in the first month, I always encourage interaction between a teacher and the parent. Know your child's teacher, and don't be afraid to use that communication book, or even coming into the school or calling the teacher, saying things like, oh, Amahle is struggling to make friends. Who do you think would be a suitable friend? The teacher may or may not be. I know teachers in foundation phase are always keeping their eyes open, and they say things like, oh, they observe the dynamics. So if you just ask the teacher to be your eyes and ears and encourage things like that, and if you can, organize play dates with children in your child's class, like, oh, who stays next to our home? Oh, who's their mother? Be that curious parent who tries to, a step further, especially if your child is really, really struggling or is being sidelined. Even if you connect with one parent whose child is also struggling to create a friend, things like that. But it's important to know how far you should step in, because you don't want to enable your child as if you always fight their battles. So well done, Mama, for encouraging and pushing and making them try to do it on their own.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that question. There's another question that Nonko left. Unfortunately, she couldn't reconnect to the call. She's asking that could it be that the prevalence of mental health is more to women than men, because women are the ones that usually seek medical attention if they have a problem?
That's very possible. I looked at that stat, and or even just the prevalence, even in our DSM, I think it's very possible, because most of the time you find that it's women who are more amiable to actually walk into a psychologist, again, because there's such a stigma around mental health issues. I don't know if Usisg, no CC, who are practicing currently, could attest to this.
Okay, Miss G's hand is up. Miss G, can you go first, and then I'll
Yes,
Andy also say something?
yes. Okay, before I could answer, I just want to say well done, Asiphe. Your presentation was really amazing. I'm super proud. Just to give an answer to that, there is this belief that is taught to our younger male, where they said men don't cry. Male cannot cry and complain and actually express how they're feeling. It could be the factor as well, because they believe that even if they've got something that is going on, they cannot go out and actually speak to another person about how they're feeling. It comes back to the age where people are not encouraged to speak out when they are suffering, when they've got issues that are going on, which is something that needs to be changed, which is the narrative that needs to be changed from a very young age by the family members to say, you know what, you are here, talk to us, what is it that we can help you with? If there's something that you're feeling, talk about it. And again, there's another state that, you know, the people that are hurting, the people that are in jail today, you find that those people, when you have an interview with them, they said, I was never given a chance to actually to speak out about how I'm feeling. And then it's way later when they are given a chance, when they've already done the damage. So yeah, that could also be another factor. Thank you.
Afternoon, ladies.
Hello.
I'm Stabile Dlamini. I also thank you for such a nice presentation, such a fresh perspective. I also happen to think that women are mainly diagnosed with mental health issues because they come to the fore. But you'll find that men use other coping mechanisms, such as self-medicating with alcohol, gambling, and other things that they use to self-medicate. And when in general, when you listen to men in the places where you find men, you'll find that men are very negative. They express the bitterness in those contexts. They never really deal, they just discuss and they don't come with solutions. They do all sorts of destructive things. And when you trace and when you listen and trace to what they're saying, the root is from their childhood. They were never taught to cry when they hurt. They were never taught how to deal with adversity. They're mainly not in connection with how to treat other people. They mainly about how they're feeling. I don't know if you get me.
Definitely. Yes, Sissy, I get you.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I think you're speaking to something that is possibly an entire topic on its own, because I find that now with kids, most of my clients of the kids that came in were male. And I'm realizing now that after a while, the kids that I was working at a special school, and the kids were mostly male. And I realized we are able to diagnose learning difficulties, ADHD in males very quickly. And later on, all of a sudden, what happened to those males? They don't reflect on our database as children with depression and so on and so forth. I really do think that the space to actually groom and help men to be in touch with their feelings is iyabonakala kakhulu. And so if you are raising a boy child, I really ask that you treat your boy child as a human being with emotions, and you teach them how to emote, you know, as a human being. Because what Sister was saying, then they go and self-medicate and alienate themselves from their feelings. They will drink, they will get into drugs, they will get into issues as in jalo. So I really, yeah, that's a whole topic that we could have another day about raising the boy child in South Africa.
Definitely. This is not the last time I'm actually hosting you, Asiphe. So people must just follow me on all my social media platforms and see the next time I interview you. Nandisa had her hand up. Nandisa, can you please talk?
Hey everybody. Oh, such a lovely platform. Thank you, Nobilo. Asiphe, you know, our future is bright. Thank you. We appreciate you sharing what we just basically share with like one or two people in our offices. I want to just quickly jump into the issue around underreporting of symptoms and underreporting of problems by men. And one of the things that we maybe should just looking at our society is that a lot of our men are, they suffer with alcoholism and, all these other psychological issues without reporting, but also how a lot of them are diseased. So you'll see hypertension, you'll see diabetes, you'll see all these things, HIV, AIDS, all of those statistics, and then a lot of them are in prison. So a lot of times what happens is that they'll grow up, with all these issues inside of them, aggression and all of that, never seek or find help. Everybody looks at them as hyper aggressive, males. And then the next step is that then they'll obviously get into trouble with a lot of stuff, and then they'll steal, they do this and that, and then they end up in prison. So having worked in a prison, one of the things that I noted like quite a while back was that a lot of people end up in prison that shouldn't even be in prison, because the behavior that they exhibit is really around expressing emotions. And if they had that space and time to express emotions, that's all that would have happened. They would have expressed that and then be okay. But in fact, what happens a lot of times is that they just do not have those spaces, whether it's a historical thing of, our past as South Africa, it could be so many different things. So a lot of men go undiagnosed, they underreport, they do not seek help as much as, they should. The second thing for me is that, women come in to see a psychologist for whatever reason. So my child is struggling at school. It turns out that granny passed away who lived with the child, and then the husband of this person, they have a complicated relationship. You end up treating the family, and that's the only time that the male starts to experience some kind of treatment for his own issues and underlying issues. So there's so many dynamics that I think Asiphe touched on, and Ms. G, that I think, are absolutely true, and that we need to maybe start to be more reflective as women. There's somebody who asked the question on the timeline, on the chat there, that said, well, if I've got my own depressive issues from my own childhood, how am I going to be there for my child? And I think a short answer is therapy, but a long answer is that we've got to understand that our past is with us and impacts on how we look at things and how we do things. So when we can't have compassion for our little child who's disturbing us when we're supposed to be doing something, and we say, oh, when Pumala, Pumala, we get all angry. You must actually remember how your parents treated you. The likelihood is that your own parents didn't have patience with you, and you didn't learn how to have patience with your child. So we can't connect with our own children. And so we raise them exactly how we were raised. And that's part of the problem. And so when we start to actually experience these emotions that intuitively we like, there's something wrong with how angry I was with my husband or with my child, or I was too upset at work, there was something going on there. The likelihood is that there's a lot that's going on with you, and you've got to find space and time. Sometimes it's through a women's group, that you attend, or even this platform, whatever platform, or like a WhatsApp chat or whatever. But sometimes it's a bit more, because maybe it's an underlying psychological problem that you need to deal with. And the likelihood is that once you start to understand your own anxiety, your own attention deficit disorder, then you can have more compassion for your child who has attention deficit disorder, who just cannot concentrate, who just was all over the place, who's driving you crazy. But in fact, it's because they themselves are going through what you have gone through as a parent. So you've got to find for yourself the space for your own healing before you think you can have the kind of a capacity of compassion that you need to have for everybody else. I think a lot of us, because we're women, we have multiple roles. And I think sometimes we forget that we've got to sit down and say, on a Saturday night, I'm actually just going to listen to this podcast, and I'm going to do this work because I'm trying to grow myself and I'm trying to deal with my own issues, as opposed to like pleasing everyone, making and being there for everyone all the time. So one of the ways in which we can start to have compassion for the child in us is to actually have those reflective spaces and work on yourself as someone who needs to be we need to be compassionate towards ourselves, the child self, the current self, the future self, whatever self you're working with. And we've got to be able to say, look, I haven't always made the best decisions, but I can now. I haven't always been cared for, but somebody can care for me now, and that's me. So, the things that we need, whether it's discipline and routine, and looking after your body physically, or committing to your prayer life, because you didn't always have space. You didn't always have, people that listen to you. And when you said at home, no, I actually want to go to church, your parents were like, no, like you can't go to church or whatever it is. So the idea is to have these spaces that you didn't have when you were younger. And guys, I don't mean self-care, going to the spa and all of that stuff. That's like nice, but it doesn't do the same thing that reflective spaces do. So that is my only response. I'm sorry I took up so much time, but thank you for listening to me, guys. All right, then.
Thank you so much. Nandi has a practice there if you're living in Maritzburg in the Intercare Center. So you can just request her details if you need some help. Matsidiso has her hand up. Ladies, we just have to summarize everything because our Zoom link ends at 8:30. It was actually supposed to end at 8, so I'm so grateful to Annie that she made it longer. She probably understands women better. Matsidiso, you can talk.
Hi, ladies. Thanks you, Nompilo. Yeah, I asked the question earlier in the chat, and my question was connected to, when you have a trauma from the childhood and your emotion and social development, like you can't connect to your feelings. I think one of the challenges that I have from my childhood, I had a problem with naming my emotions because I was told not to show emotions. I was told not to cry, to always be in control. And now I sort of know what I'm feeling. I actually had to print this emotion feeling chart, but I cannot process them. And the challenge with that, how does it affect me, is that because I don't process emotions, I suppress them. And at some point, they keep on building up inside of me. And at work, I find myself just having outbursts when I'm angry with people, compared to under control condition, process what I'm feeling. Why am I angry? Is it because my value is being disrespected, or is because of something in my past that is being triggered? So what do you do now when you're an adult to try to address that?
Sure. Can I quickly
Yeah.
thank you so much, Matsidi. So, can I quickly take another question so that Miss G can just respond to everyone all at once? I saw that Apiwe had a question. After Apiwe, Londiwe can go. And then after Londiwe, Lindo can go. And then maybe Miss G can just try and summarize because I see her hand is also up. So we can listen to these questions and then maybe try and wrap up. And there will be an opportunity for you guys to actually connect with these ladies afterwards if there's a need, because we cannot leave each other hanging like this just because of the Zoom. So can I just hear the other questions from Apiwe, Londiwe, and Slindo?
Hi, ladies. No, I think my question was answered by Nandi. So I think I'm answered. I think I don't want to waste any more time. Of course, I'd like a follow up in terms of further conversations outside this. Really, I appreciate the platform as well. So yeah, I think I'm answered. Yeah. So yeah.
Thank you so much.
Anybody else can.
Okay, Londi, are you still? Were you also covered?
I think the other lady has asked almost a similar question. I think the responses will be similar as well. So I'm covered. Thank you.
Oh, perfect. And then the last one, Indo. And Nandi, please share your practice details on the chat and your number so that people can contact you. Slindo, you had a question in the chat while Asiphe was presenting. Okay. Maybe she was also covered. Miss G, you can wrap up and I'll just do the closing.
Okay. I want to highlight that sometimes we feel like the people that are suffering are the people that actually don't finish high school, people that are not successful. I work with the university students. So they get referred because of their academic performance when they're not performing very well. So you might think, oh, my child is doing very well now. My child is leaving, is going to the university. Whereas maybe there are other underlying issues that your child who is heading to the university is suffering from. So we need to look out for children. If we remember, there was this story that was on the social media. I think it was a story from Limpopo where a child was involved in a fight at school and then went home and the child actually committed suicide. And then I was actually heartbroken because you could feel that if maybe the child had a chance to speak to somebody and maybe the parent had a time to listen to the child and the child has gotten somebody to listen to the child's life could have been saved. So it's very important for us as parents, as women, to change the narrative where we say children don't have to come and speak to their parent, find out from the children, how was school today? Talk to me. Is there anything that you want to discuss with mama? It's very important. I have a 6-year-old Nobilo, and because of what I'm trying to do in my family, whenever there's issues, she will call of us and said, can you all have a meeting? She's just 6 years old. And then we come together, we sit, and then she will bring the agenda and actually mention the things that she would like us to discuss. So I wish I had that chance while I was growing up, but it's something that we as adults, because now we know better, we can be able to do. However, therapy is the best way to go, as I think it was Nandi who mentioned that, because you cannot just get help from this session, one single session. It's an ongoing process for a person to actually get help. Like Asiphe was saying, it's a lot of trauma experiences that one had to go through for the person to having these mental issues. So when you go to therapy, and not once, not twice, up to 15, 25 sessions for a person to actually get help. Check on your child, which is at the university, phone them, find out how they're doing, how they're coping, speak to them. Don't think they are doing well because they got A's and B's when they were doing matric. That's what I wanted to highlight. Thank you.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a powerful show it has been. I am so excited that you ladies came through and you participated and you asked questions and you were part of this. And the good news is this video is going to be posted on my husband's channel, Yeah Show. So just keep watching the space. So that you can share it with other people that need the help. But I'm just so thankful that you could all tune in tonight and just hear for yourselves. Don't forget that next week we have Ukolega Zama. She's a chartered accountant by profession, and she is my mentor since I was 16 when I met her. And she's actually going to be continuing on this similar topic because she'll talk about the glory of life lies not in never falling, but in rising up every time you have fallen. So please tell your other friends, they can still get themselves the a book to book the spots and join us for next week. Thank you so much, Asiphe. You are so amazing. I'm glad that when I heard you the first time, I actually picked up that you were just so amazing. And the ladies also see that you are so amazing. So ladies, it's been such a wonderful time. So if you need Nandi, Asiphe, Star or Miss G's number, just contact me. They are able to assist you after this. May God richly bless you. Thank you so much for joining tonight. I'm really so excited that you guys came through and you want to be better in your lives and excel. And next week we continue, and the next following week we're going to be doing accelerating your career, and last week we're doing thriving in your business. So by the time we finish this, we're gonna be perfect. So Monday, we are launching something for women in business. So please join. Just ask me if you want more details. It's Epreneur, and it's being launched on Monday. So happy Women's Day for Monday, and have a blessed evening. Be the loving parents, and may God richly bless you. Bye-bye, ladies.
Mama.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ladies.
It's been
Bye.
great.
Bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone. It's been
Bye,
really
Auntie
great.
Nopilo.
Bye, babies. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, guys. Thank you so much. Have a lovely week.
Have a lovely, enjoy Women's
The lady
Day.
who wants to study. Bye.
Oh, yes,
The lady
I'll
wants
tell
to,
her.
please, if you can give my contact so I can be able to assist.
Oh, okay. No, I will definitely give her your contact, Miss G. Thank you
Okay,
so
then.
much.
Okay.
We have a guest
Okay.
from Limpopo, from Eastern Cape. Hey, guys, we've got people from all over. May God richly bless you. Thank you.
Well done, Nopilo. Mwah.
Thank you so much, Ali. Thank you.
Don't forget to stop recording,
Yeah.
Nompilo.